I arrived at the family reunion with my twins. Mom muttered, "This was supposed to be a special day. Nobody invited you." My son tugged my sleeve and whispered, "Mommy, let's go home." We left quietly. By evening, she discovered the trust papers on her table and finally understood what she'd thrown away. The parking lot was full when I pulled up to the lakeside pavilion. Through the windshield, I could see colorful balloons tied to the picnic tables and hear music drifting across the water. My 6-year-old twins, Marcus and Sophia, pressed their faces against the back windows. "Is that where Grandma is?" Sophia asked. "Sweetie, the whole family's here today." I hadn't received an invitation. My sister Jennifer had posted photos on social media all week. Planning, decorations, catered food being delivered. Not once had anyone mentioned it to me. But I drove 3 hours anyway because my children deserved to know their family. We walked across the grass toward the pavilion. I wore a simple sundress, nothing fancy. The twins held my hands, excited and nervous. They'd only met most of these relatives a handful of times. My mother saw us first. She stood near the dessert table talking to my Aunt Patricia. Her smile disappeared the moment our eyes met. She set down her plate and walked toward us with quick, deliberate steps. "Elizabeth," she said, her voice tight. "This was supposed to be a special day." Around us, conversations quieted. My Uncle Robert stopped mid-sentence. Jennifer turned from the grill, spatula in hand. Cousins I hadn't seen in years suddenly found their phones very interesting. "I know," I said calmly. "The twins wanted to see everyone. Nobody invited you." Mom's words carried across the pavilion. "This is for family who actually show up when it matters." Marcus tugged my sleeve. His brown eyes filled with tears. "Mommy, let's go home." Sophia gripped my other hand tighter. At 6 years old, they understood rejection perfectly well. "You're right," I said to my mother. "We should go." I turned the twins around and walked back to the car. Nobody called after us. Nobody said goodbye. Through the rearview mirror, I watched my mother return to the pavilion, already laughing about something with Patricia. The drive home was quiet. Sophia fell asleep 20 minutes in. Marcus stared out the window, not speaking. I'd grown used to my family's coldness over the years, but watching my children experience it felt different. My relationship with my mother had fractured 7 years ago when I married Thomas against her wishes. He wasn't wealthy, she'd said. He didn't come from the right background. He was a high school teacher, for God's sake, not a doctor or lawyer. When I got pregnant 6 months after the wedding, she called it throwing my life away. Thomas died when the twins were 2. A drunk driver ran a red light on his way home from parent-teacher conferences. The settlement money sat untouched in an account I couldn't bring myself to look at. My mother attended the funeral but left immediately after, uncomfortable with grief she couldn't control or understand. Since then, I'd become the family ghost. Present in old photos, absent from current celebrations. My sister got the attention, the support, the approval. Jennifer married a surgeon, lived in the right neighborhood, said the right things. I lived in Thomas's old house, worked as a freelance graphic designer, and apparently didn't matter anymore. What my mother didn't know was that my grandmother, her own mother, felt differently. Grandma Helen died 18 months ago at 93. Sharp-minded until the end, she watched my mother's treatment of me with increasing disapproval. In her final year, she called me to her house regularly. We drank tea and talked while she shared stories about her own difficult relationship with her mother-in-law. "Your mother thinks money and status equal worth," Grandma Helen said during one visit. I tried to teach her differently, but some lessons don't stick. He squeezed my hand. "You remind me of your grandfather. He never cared what people thought either." 3 weeks before she passed, Grandma Helen asked me to drive her to her lawyer's office. I sat in the waiting room while they met privately. She emerged 2 hours later, tired but satisfied. "I've done something that will either teach your mother an important lesson or prove she's beyond learning," she told me in the car. "Either way, you'll be taken care of." I hadn't understood then. The funeral was a blur of relatives I barely knew, all of them eyeing each other with the particular tension that accompanies significant estates. My mother was in her element, playing the devoted daughter, crying theatrically while checking her phone between eulogies. The will reading happened 2 weeks later. I attended because the lawyer specifically requested my presence, though my mother tried to convince me it wasn't necessary. The conference room was packed with relatives, everyone pretending they weren't calculating their share. Grandma Helen's estate was worth $14 million. Property, investments, stocks, and the family business she built with my grandfather. Everyone expected it to be divided among her 3 children, with my mother receiving the largest share as the eldest. Instead, the lawyer read out terms that made my aunt gasp and my uncle walk out. Grandma Helen had established an irrevocable trust with me as the sole trustee. I controlled every dollar, every decision, every distribution. My mother, her siblings, and their families would receive monthly allowances, with me having complete discretion to adjust or terminate payments based on their behavior and circumstances. The document was explicit about the reasoning. Grandma Helen had witnessed years of my mother's cruelty toward me and wanted to ensure I had the power to protect myself and my children. She also included a letter, read aloud by the lawyer, explaining that she hoped this arrangement would teach her children the value of treating family with respect rather than as competition. My mother was furious but legally powerless. The trust was airtight, reviewed by 3 different law firms. She argued with the lawyer, then called me repeatedly, alternating between rage and fake sweetness. I changed my number after the 100th call. For 18 months I managed the trust quietly. My mother received her monthly payment of $12,000, the same as her siblings. It covered her mortgage, her car payment, her country club dues. She always assumed it came automatically from the bank, never questioning the mechanism behind it. I never told her I controlled it. I never used that power to hurt or manipulate her. I simply continued the payments month after month, hoping she might eventually realize that family meant more than appearances. But today, watching my children's faces as we were dismissed from the reunion, something in me shifted. After putting the twins to bed that evening, I drove back to my mother's house. She lived 40 minutes away in a gated community where every lawn looked identical. Her white SUV sat in the driveway, still covered with dust from the drive back from the pavilion. I left the manila envelope on her kitchen table. I still had a key from years ago, from before everything fell apart. The house was empty. She was probably still at Jennifer's, celebrating the successful family gathering that hadn't included us. Inside the envelope were copies of the trust documents. Every page showed my name as trustee. Every clause granted me complete control. Every distribution record listed the monthly payments that had quietly funded her lifestyle for a year and a half. I'd also included a letter explaining that this month's payment would be the last unless she could demonstrate that she understood what treating family with basic respect actually meant. I didn't write it with anger. I wrote it with the exhausted clarity of someone who had finally realized that hoping for change wasn't the same as requiring it. My phone rang at 9:30 that night. Mom's number flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. She called 6 more times over the next hour. Then Jennifer called. Then Uncle Robert. Then Aunt Patricia. I turned off my phone and sat with a cup of tea, the same kind Grandma Helen used to make. The next morning there were 43 missed calls and 17 voicemail messages. I listened to the first 3. Mom's voice progressed from shock to angry to something approaching panic. The 4th message was different. Quiet, almost confused. Elizabeth, I found the papers. I need to talk to you. Please call me back. I didn't call back that day. Or the next. On the 3rd day she showed up at my house. I watched through the window as she sat in her car for 10 minutes, gathering courage. When she finally knocked, her makeup was smudged as if she'd been crying. Can we talk? She asked. The twins are doing homework, I said. This isn't a good time. I read everything. The lawyer's notes, your grandmother's letter. All of it. She twisted her hands together. I didn't know about the trust, about you controlling everything. The payments just appeared in my account every month. I know you didn't know. That wasn't the point. Then what was the point? Her voice cracked slightly. Humiliating me. Punishing me. The point was seeing if you'd treat me with basic decency without needing a financial reason to do it. Kept my voice level. You failed. She stared at me and for the first time in years actually seemed to see me. Not the disappointing daughter, the embarrassing widow, or the uninvited guest. Just me. I was cruel to you today, she said quietly. In front of your children. In front of everyone. You've been cruel to me for 7 years, Mom. Today was just the first time it cost you something. What happens now? I thought about Grandma Helen, about Thomas, about my children sleeping peacefully upstairs because I had finally stopped pretending that ignoring mistreatment was the same as family loyalty. Now you have a choice, I said. You can decide that money matters more than your daughter and grandchildren, keep the attitude, lose the support. Or you can figure out what kind of grandmother you want Marcus and Sophia to remember. I want to fix this. Wanting isn't the same as doing, Mom. Grandma Helen gave me this control because she knew words without action meant nothing in this family. I opened the door wider. But if you actually mean it, you can start by coming to dinner on Sunday. Not because of the trust, not because you need something, just because we're your family. She nodded slowly, tears running down her cheeks. Real ones this time, not the theatrical kind from Grandma Helen's funeral. Sunday, she repeated. What time? 5 o'clock. The twins eat early. She left without saying anything else. I watched her car pull away, unsure if she'd actually show up. But I'd done what Grandma Helen had trusted me to do. I'd given her the chance to choose correctly. Sunday afternoon I made pot roast, Thomas's favorite recipe. The twins set the table, excited that Grandma might actually come this time. 4:59 came and went. The twins' faces fell. Then at 5:03 the doorbell rang. Mom stood on the porch holding a bakery box and looking nervous. I didn't know what to bring, she said. So I got cookies, the ones with the sprinkles Sophia likes. Marcus and Sophia appeared behind me, cautious but hopeful. Mom knelt down to their level, her expensive skirt touching my porch floor. I'm sorry about the reunion, she said to them directly. Grandma was wrong, very wrong. You two are always invited, always wanted. I'm going to do better. Sophia looked at me for permission. I nodded slightly. She reached out and hugged her grandmother, and Marcus followed. Mom closed her eyes, holding them like she was afraid they might disappear. We ate dinner together that night. Conversation was awkward at first. Years of damage don't erase easily. But Mom asked the twins about school, really listening to their answers. She wanted to know about Marcus's science project on volcanoes and Sophia's reading level. She complimented the pot roast without mentioning calories or carbs, even taking a second helping. She asked about my work, my current design projects, my clients, my days, as if my answers actually mattered to her. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't 7 years of hurt magically healed. But it was a start. The next month I approved her trust distribution. And the month after that. Not because she'd kissed up to me, begged or played games, but because she kept showing up. To dinners, to the twins' soccer games, to quiet afternoons where we slowly rebuilt something that resembled a relationship. Grandma Helen had known exactly what she was doing. The trust wasn't punishment. It was a mirror, forcing my mother to see what she'd become and choose whether to stay that way. 6 months after the reunion, Mom called me. Jennifer's planning a birthday party for her daughter, she said. I told her we're all coming. You, me, the twins. As a family. Will I get an invitation this time? I asked. You shouldn't need one, Mom said. You're family. You've always been family. I just forgot what that meant. I thought about that day at the pavilion, about Marcus tugging my sleeve, about Sophia's confused hurt. About the envelope I'd left on the table and the choice it had forced. We'll be there, I said. Because Grandma Helen had been right. Some lessons can't be taught with words. Sometimes power has to shift before people understand what they've been taking for granted. And sometimes the quietest person in the family is actually the one holding everything together. The trust would remain in my control for the rest of my life. But the real inheritance wasn't money. It was the knowledge that I didn't have to accept disrespect, even from family. Especially from family. Grandma Helen had given me more than financial security. She'd given me permission to require better.